Hey everybody, welcome to the other side of addiction. I am Al Richards and I am with my lovely partner, Lorie Warburton. Hi Lorie.
Hey.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Al?
I'm doing great. I'm bummed that I missed last week though.
Well, I'm excited to be here today. You did miss out on a good segment, but...
Yes, I did. Yes. It was
happy to have
phenomenal.
you back here with me because it's always great to have both hosts here in order to, get our word out there and make it make sense to everybody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
missed your presence.
Yeah, and I felt it. It's like I need to be there. I really need to be there. But I had these other obligations that, I didn't want us to get out of those. But anyway, I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here too.
Thank you. And for those that are listening, we are so happy to have you guys out there too. I mean, we were just being shared the downloads that we've had, and I'm literally shocked, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
from
very
our first
blessed.
ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Some nice comments, some people who are reaching out to let us know that they're listening and hearing our voices and the things that we have to say and touch their hearts in many different ways.
I agree. And today might get a little emotional. I don't know, because we're gonna share a little bit about our stories, right? Because I actually had somebody reach out to me. Brad reaches over with some tissue. We might need them. I didn't put mascara on today, so I should be okay.
I've never grabbed a tissue. I've done it like every time without, but yeah.
Well, and hopefully we're going to have some shows too where there's some laughs and some giggles. And
absolutely.
I did have somebody comment on your snort, which I thought was really good. Even my wife mentioned that. She goes, "Did Lorie just snort?" I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes she does that, but it's okay."
Yeah. I never know when that's going to come out. I mean, it's happened in church, or like if I'm out public speaking or doing something in the professional world, it definitely comes across even over a loudspeaker or something, and they're like, "Oh, there's Lorie." They identify me by that.
It's okay though. It is
it's just
what
one
it
of my
is.
little things I have.
Yeah. Well, where would you like to start today?
Well, I think last week we discussed that we were going to talk a little bit about our stories and let people become familiar with who we are. And I thought that was a really neat angle because mostly we've been talking about a plethora of things, right?
Yeah.
And so I find that to be important. So I invite you to share a little bit about your story, and how, why, and all of these kind of things, why we decided to come together to do this podcast. So
yeah, and I think it's a great idea. I had somebody reach out to me that heard our first podcast, and they actually mentioned that. They're like, "Yeah, it was a great podcast, but would like to learn a little bit more about you and Lorie."
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think today's a great day to share.
Mm-hmm.
So my journey, oh my gosh, I guess I might as well just start when I first met my wife. I met her. We both worked at the same place, and we got into some conversation, started eventually going out. And when I moved in with her, we used to entertain friends. She lived in a trailer. I moved in with her, and we'd have friends come over on the weekend, and we'd play cards or board games and have a few drinks and just basically like social drinking. And none of us ever really got to where you are back when you're 17, 18 years old, where their whole purpose is to get plastered and, make an ass out of yourself, basically. But it was just like social drinking. And then we decided to get married 3 years after that, and we got our house, and we did the same thing. We would have people come over, and we'd entertain friends, we'd play darts out in the garage, listen to stereo, have drinks. My wife loved making Jello shots. I've never heard of Jello shots before. Maybe I've had a few much to drink. Just thinking about it, I'm already slurring my words. But anyway, she loved making Jello shots. And, I knew of some of her past, but not as deep as it started showing up. Mm-hmm. But 2009, things we got married, and usually when you get married, things start out great, you think.
Right.
We got married in May of 2009. July of 2009, I lost my job of 24 years. August of 2009, she lost her dad. And then 6-7 months after all that, we were battling trying to save our house. But when we were still entertaining friends while we still had the house, I noticed she just wasn't mixing a drink anymore. She was literally grabbing the bottle and starting to just guzzle booze right out of the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got to where I noticed where she was actually hiding bottles out in the garage. And that's when I realized things was really starting to change. And I was on a show this morning before this one, and the gentleman, one of the questions he asked me, says, "So what was the conversations like?" I'm like, "Conversations? It wasn't conversations. It was a drag-out fight."
Mm-hmm.
Because I was hurt. I was upset. I was ticked off. I was throwing a lot of daggers, which I've mentioned before. But I'm like, we never sat down and talked about it. It was just anger all the time.
But you didn't probably know how to approach her, right? At the
No.
time. And so you were just kind of, in a way, just like allowing this to happen. I don't mean to say that rudely, but
Right.
just kind of like you weren't sure how to approach in a healthy manner what was happening. So you're just trying to take all of this in, and she's becoming combative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where like a little bit of the battlefield starts, I guess, in those types of
Well, yeah.
circumstances, because alcohol or any type of drugs or like that will affect people in different ways. Some people have a little alcohol and they become jovial, and just a lovey-dovey.
Yeah.
Another person who's fighting things, who doesn't tell you anything about, will come combative. And maybe that's what was happening.
That's exactly right, because I would say something that would trigger her,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's throwing the daggers right back at me. And then, of course, what do we do when somebody starts beating up on us verbally?
Mm-hmm.
We put our wall up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's our natural ability to put up our wall and fight back. And so a lot of the words, as I shared this morning, I wish I could take back a lot of the words that I said, because I didn't mean them.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
And there's all those
Right.
types of things, but you have to realize that in these situations that you don't go there. Coulda, woulda, shoulda is not going to help you. It's like,
No, it's
if,
in the past.
and it's like, if come and when come. When's my income going to come? And if it's going to come and when it's going to. It's the same thing with these types of things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I've been able to work on that, of course, and I still wish that I wouldn't have said the things, but it was all
Absolutely.
part of the growing process.
Mm-hmm.
But as things progressed, we ended up losing our house. We lived in the basement of a friend's house for a couple of years because we didn't have any money to even get an apartment. But the drinking started escalating really bad, and she did get to a point where she went 13 months sober. And I tell you what, our relationship during that time was phenomenal. I think it was better than it was for the 3 years we dated before we got married. I mean, it was great. Our communication was really good. And then she decided to take a drink one day. We were doing a little stay vacation here in town, and it was to the point where I was able to have a drink in front of her, didn't bother her. I went in to go to the restroom. I come out and I saw her hurry and put my glass down. I'm like, "What did you just do?" And she goes, "Oh, nobody can make a mistake around you, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "No, you don't get it. You've been 13 months sober and you just took a taste of alcohol. That's like a vampire tasting blood for the first time."
Mm-hmm.
She got really upset with me, which I get it. But that's when our whole life imploded. I mean, from that day, I think it was a few weeks after that, she got her first DUI. Shortly after that, after I got her truck out of impound, she got pulled over again. They suspected she was drunk, even though she passed the breathalyzer and they found no alcohol, but they got her driving on a suspended license. Not too long after that, she got her second DUI. Then she went through where she was looking for me because she was drunk, and I took off and went to go stay at a hotel, and she came looking for me. And the she had an idea where I was staying, and they called me and they said, hey, your wife was just here and she's pretty hammered. What do you want us to do? I'm like, call the cops. Cops ended up coming up to my room, knocking on the door. Hey, what's going on? I shared the story about my wife's alcoholism. At that time, that cop got a call on his radio. And he looked at me with this look in his eyes, and he goes, what vehicle again was your wife driving? And I told him. And he answers back on the radio, and he looked at me and he goes, I'm going to leave. Give me your phone number. I will call you, but the description they just gave me, the vehicle, sounded just like your wife's vehicle. Feeling the blood rush out of my face all the way down to my feet, thinking, did she just get in an accident and kill somebody? Did she just kill herself? The feeling that comes over you at that time, it took about 45 minutes later, and he finally called me and he says, Mr. Richards, it was your wife.
Wow.
And I just remember tears just flowing out, going, oh my gosh. And the first thing I asked the officer, is anybody hurt? And he said, no, luckily she hit a parked car. She's fine. We've got her out of the vehicle, but we are taking her to jail, which I understood. And things from that point just, where they say addiction, it doesn't matter what kind of addiction it is. It's a family disease.
Mm-hmm.
It took me, the path she was going down, I jumped on that same path, and I started going down it with her. Even though I wasn't abusing alcohol or anything else, I was still a part of that addiction because it took over my life.
Absolutely.
So bad to where 2 years ago, this coming June, I was coming home from a chamber event. A lot of the chambers put on networking groups and things, and I had made the decision as I left that event that I was going to go home and get my pistol, and I was going to go up in the mountains, and I was done because I could not come home to the turmoil, the anger, the pain, everything that was going on in my life at the time. I got a phone call, and I've shared many times in my talks that I wish I could remember who called me, because I would call them back and ask to meet them, and I would give them the biggest flippin' hug and tell them thank you. And the reason why is because when I got off that phone call, the screensaver that I had on my phone at the time was a picture of my 2 daughters and my 3 grandkids. It was a picture we took during one of the Easters. And I remember just breaking down and crying. I was crying so hard I couldn't even see the road anymore because of the tears. So I pulled over. I don't know how long I was there on the side of the road just crying, thinking how selfish I was to think that way, that I was looking at taking my life and taking time that my daughters and my grandkids have with me and shortening that. And she's retired now, but I had a friend that worked at the West Jordan Police who did a program called the Peer Support Program that helped our first responders, because a lot of our first responders have committed suicide because of things that they have to deal with, and they don't know how to get the help that they need. And I gave her a call and I said, what do I do? And she says, first of all, you get yourself out of that situation. And she goes, these are the steps that you need to take. And to this day, I am so grateful for that. Luckily, well, not luckily, I had to kick my wife out. She had nowhere to go, so she got herself into a rehab. That gave me that break that I needed. I was able to get out of my lease, get out of the apartment that I was in, because the negative energy that was inside that room, as soon as I walked in there, I mean, you could feel it. If people don't believe energy is real, bull crap. It is.
Well, I'm an empath, so I understand
so
those energies very, very, very much. Yes, I do.
So I moved into a new apartment, got myself out of the situation, and I still did things the wrong way. So even when I'd go visit her at rehabs, and when she started getting sober, we could actually sit down and have a conversation without the negative energy and the negative words and verbal abuse. We actually, like adults, and was able to sit down and talk. But I was still doing things wrong. And I think I might have mentioned this on a show before, but I remember her saying once, she goes, for once, I wish you would be my husband instead of my therapist, because you don't have a clue what's going on.
Well, I would like to say something here. When I checked myself into a rehab center, okay, my family, not one, came to a family meeting. Nobody came to see me. I mean, I was there doing this on my own.
You were alone.
Yeah, and so for you to be there and just to show up and to have communication, whether it was the right or the wrong way, having support from someone from your family is so important, and that you have never let go of that is amazing to me, because I didn't have that. I'm not saying I didn't have support of people who loved or cared about me.
Right.
My mom, my stepdad. I know my kids love me. You know what I mean? But it's just that they didn't have the energy to do that. And here you were still trying to provide that. Whether you beat yourself up a lot, I notice in these, because you wanted to do something good, but you keep saying you're doing it wrong. Nobody knows how to do this thing. Nobody knows.
But we think we do.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I mean, I thought I was doing the right thing the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. And so I love the fact that you were willing, to go and just kind of be there, and whether you had to, this many years later, realize the right way to do it or wrong, like you were still there,
Yeah.
and she had that support, or from nobody, that she didn't have any other support. It was you. So I'm sure to this day that means a lot.
Yeah, and she's told me that it's meant a lot to her, and she really appreciates that I was there. She has said, I don't know how many times, you were the only one that I could count on, that I knew that you would be there no matter what. Even if you divorced me, I knew if I called you, you would still be there. And I started 3 divorces with her, and I've canceled 3 divorces.
I remember
with
you
her.
do.
You and I talked a couple
Yeah.
times. You're like, what are you going to do? And it's like, I'm done. I am done. I'm fed up with this. I can't do it anymore. And then she would get out of rehab, and I'd see this woman that I fell in love with, and those feelings start coming back, because I was willing to let the pain and the anger go, because I have a family member that's never let go of that, and I have seen what it's done to him. And I was no way in hell was that going to happen to me. So I let a lot of that go, and I would always tell her, look, I have forgiven you. I hope you've forgiven me for things that I've said, but I will forgive you for everything. I just want you to get better, And again, with being on the other side of it, all we know is to do what we feel like is the best. And yes, there's programs out there, for us, like Al-Anon, and Al-Anon has helped a lot of people, and it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't a fit for me. But man, the dark path, when you got people that come up to you that know you, and they're pulling you off to their side, and they're going, are you okay? And you're like, yeah, I'm great, man. Life is awesome. And it's because, and we've shared this at our first podcast, that I was embarrassed to say about it, but it drained me so much. I literally didn't have a clue how much that addiction consumed me. No idea. And to try to keep it from your family and your kids, not, you don't want them to know what you're going through. If I could have shared it earlier, I think it would have helped.
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
didn't. But it was the journey that I went on. But Anyway, to try to finish this up here before we go to our first break, but yeah, it just, man, when you got somebody that you care about, excuse me, and you think that you know how to do it, I'm going to tell you right now, you don't.
Nobody knows how.
And you will never understand it. Now, my wife has said how much she appreciates me doing the things that I'm doing right now to learn more. And I'm grateful that I've done it as well. But I could spend the rest of my life studying this and doing my best to understand it, and I will never, ever understand it because we don't stand in those shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And even my wife has shared, she goes, you will never get it 100%, ever. You just won't. And she's even said that as far as her saying, I will probably never understand what you've gone through. We try to, but
Absolutely.
it,
Has she ever tried to go back through her family history to see who was an alcoholic in her family and all of that, and where it actually started? Because that really helps a lot. You know, people, they don't understand, like, there's so many people that don't agree with that alcohol is an actual disease, alcoholism, true alcoholism, okay? And it goes back through families,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and when you can go back and reach and see, I mean, I know for a fact that when you're a true alcoholic and that runs through your bloodlines, there's people in my family who they can have a couple of drinks and be fine, but there are those of us who cannot. And one thing that happens to the alcoholic is that survival mechanism. You know, you talk about food, water, shelter, a relationship, sex even, or all these kind of things, because those are parts of life, right, with a relationship. What happens is, above all of those things, alcohol goes to the very top of that person's brain and mind. And that's what they need to survive. It no longer is food, water, relationship, sex, any of these types of things. It's all that it is alcohol, and it becomes the center of their brain. It gets worked in there, and it takes years to get that and to work that out of your system. So to the alcoholic, that's the most important thing, even though they don't want it to be.
right.
In their brain, somehow the mechanics through the bloodlines of how this works, that's what happens. And once I learned that, I was like shocked, okay, because I had no idea that that's what was happening to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That became the whole center of my universe, not anything else that I love and care about or that's important to me. Why is that happening?
Well, and I used to tell my wife that, you know, at times when she was drinking, I used to get right in her face and go, alcohol's more important than me. And she's like, no, it isn't. And I'm like, the hell if it isn't.
But it was, and it is,
You
and
know?
but we're not thinking that. Like, of course we want all these other things, right? But that's what happens. It becomes that. But we don't think that. Like, that's not how we want to convey it, because we don't understand that until we've had the education.
Yeah.
Until the alcoholic becomes educated, the family becomes educated, and you're all willing to look at those things, you honestly have no idea.
No.
And you're right. So that's what takes over. And that's where it's misunderstood, you know? Once I got the education of that, and I keep understanding it and reading about it, and I grow, and I'm just like, holy cow, no wonder, you know? But it's a true disease, and we can get out into all kinds of arguments from other people about this. You know, people will say, oh, that's just a cop out, or that's this or that. But
Or it's a choice.
Yeah, or a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that An alcoholic, if they were to never pick up a drink, like a true alcoholic, if they were to never pick up a drink, they would never know. The day they pick up a drink and they have that disease in their family, and believe me, it's not everyone. Once they do, they are going to find out
Yeah, yeah.
at some point in time.
There'll be that tipping point.
What that actually means. So I think that's important to bring up.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah,
So.
I was talking to my mom once my family started knowing, once I started getting it out there and telling my family, my mom asked me the question. It's like, well, why can't she just stop? And I use this. I'm like, okay, if I'm had a bad day at work and I'm driving home and I think, man, I'm going to go home and I'm going to have a whiskey and a Coke. And then by the time I get home, get all comfortable and go, yeah, you know what? I'm not really interested in a drink. I'm just going to drink water. For an alcoholic or somebody that's battling that addiction, they have that same voice in their head. Man, my day sucked. And it could be something small, but to them it's huge. I'm going to have a drink as soon as I get home. And they may get home and they may do their best to fight it and say, no, I'm just going to have water. But they constantly have that finger just nailing them on the head, nailing on the head, going, no, you had a bad day at work. You deserve a drink. No, remember what this person said about you? Made you feel this way? You need that drink. And it's constantly bugging them and bugging them and bugging them until finally, you know, it's just like an itch. You got an itch and you're trying to ignore it and you're trying to ignore it and you're trying to ignore it, and then pretty soon you're like, oh crap, you know, you gotta scratch it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I saw with her. She did her best to fight it at times, and I could always tell when that tipping point was coming. So it's not that easy, and again, we don't understand that. And I had somebody say once on a post I put on a Facebook, and they're like, well, I've known alcoholics and it's all about choice. And well, I don't know, did you wake up one day, and Lorie, and say, let's see, I choose to be an alcoholic. I'm going to be an alcoholic today, and I'm going to be a damn good one.
Yeah, I'm going to be
I'm
good
gonna
at it no
destroy
matter what I do.
everything there is in my life. I'm going to destroy friends, family. What a choice. You know, now, yeah, maybe there was a little bit of, yeah, I choose to drink here and there. But, and I could be wrong. This is just my belief, but I don't believe it is a choice. I believe that you don't realize you're an alcoholic till you get to that point. Because my wife never ever looked at herself that she thought she was an alcoholic, even though she had been drinking since she was 15. But everything that had happened and boiled and festered throughout her life growing up, she finally hit that peak. And I mean, I've gone to AA meetings with her, and I've seen people get up and talk. And I remember the first gentleman I heard get up, and he goes, I thank God every day that he made me an alcoholic. And I'm going, you're freaking nuts, dude. Why the hell would you thank God that you became an alcoholic? And then as he shared his story, going, because I have learned so much about me, and I have learned so much, and he used the higher power. He says, I have learned so much from my higher power. I have more in my life now than I ever had before. And for the past 12, 13 years, I've been studying self-help books and different things like that. And I remember driving home from that meeting, and I grabbed my wife's hand, and I said, you call us normies. We're the normies because we can have a drink and not have a drink, you know? But I'm like, I have been studying self-help books to become a better person all these years. And I says, I just realized that person that got up and thanked God that he was an alcoholic, he passed me up a long time ago. He got it. His light bulb went off. My light bulb's just dim. I'm trying to get it to really bright and sparkle. That opened my eyes a lot of why he thanked God. And I've hit my knees so many times asking God, why am I going through this and things. Now I know why. I have to thank God now that he put me through this. And the reason why is because it brought me to this point today, to where I can sit down with you. You and I have met. We've shared our stories. It brought me to the point to where hopefully a subject that is so touchy to talk about, and people who are so embarrassed, hoping that people like ourselves can bring other people together and we can get this message out, letting people know there's hope out there. You don't have to give up. I had somebody ask me today on that show that I was on today, and they're like, what got you not to give up? And I'm like, well, I gave up a lot, but then I gave up not giving up a lot. And the reason why, I think one of the things, other than I think God wanted me to stay with her, but she kept trying. She's been through 7 rehabs. And after the 3rd one, I'm like, yeah, you're never getting better. You're always going to be this way. But she would get so low, and all of a sudden she'd stand back up and she'd try again. And I remember sitting down with the therapist, and I was in with my wife and the therapist, and the therapist told her, she goes, you know, one thing I can say about you is you've not given up. That's when I opened my eyes again, going, you know what, she's not given up. Yeah, maybe this is her 4th one. Maybe this is her 5th one. Maybe this is her 6th one. But damn it, she's still trying.
Yeah.
That tells me she because I used to tell her, Lorie, I used to get right in her face and point the finger at her, and it's like, you don't want to get better. And she'd be like, yeah, I do. I want to get better. And I was like, no, you don't. That's all you give a crap about is alcohol. I was wrong. Again, I'm the one that was wrong, not her, because she has still kept fighting. And I am very happy to say that she hit her 4-month mark just this past Friday.
Yay.
It's different, and I think I said that last time that it
Yeah.
was different, but I mean, there
Okay,
is
you can
definitely
keep on saying
something
it.
different about this time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's working, which I shared before, and we've talked about where the addiction took my life, and you know, she's basically just fallen in my arms, crying, apologizing for taking me down that road. And I told her, I was like, look, it just wasn't you, it was both of us. We both took ourselves down that road, because you know, I wasn't over here waving roses around and, you know, smelling all sweet and had all the rainbows and the unicorns, which my granddaughters love, the
Yeah.
unicorns.
Lollipops,
While you're
rainbows, and unicorns.
walking around in swamp and crap, and you know, yeah, I was in that swamp and crap just right with you. But it has taught us both really how to come together and do our best to understand what we both went through.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to
What
say,
you're still going through, what you're going
Yeah.
to, where you have the ability to end up. I mean, there's no hold. There is no push back down on what you guys can become together as a couple. You know, I wish all the best for you, and I keep hoping that each day and praying for that, you know, each day for anybody who's struggling or battling with these types of things, because
yeah,
it's
it's
definitely
a tough situation. But anyway, there's a little bit about what's going on. So the person that reached out and said would like to learn a little bit more about you. Well, there's a little bit more about my story. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to hear Lorie's story, so you guys can get to know a little bit more about Lorie and the path that she went on. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that you and I have met, and we get to share our experiences with
Yeah.
people out there. So before I start bawling really bad again, we're gonna take a short break, and then we'll be right back.
We at High Point Coffee are proud to sponsor the Other Side of Addiction podcast. If you've never heard of us, High Point is a warm and inviting little coffee house just on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood Road. Our shop has easy access drive-through, free Wi-Fi, and plenty of comfortable seating, with charging stations good for everything from studying, business meetings, or get-togethers with friends. We opened High Point's doors in November of 2007 and have been happily growing ever since. We love what we do and refer to our customers as family because that's the way you are treated here. We don't believe that anyone should walk away from our coffee house with anything less than a huge smile and a great cup of coffee. We have a full menu of options from hot lattes to top-of-the-line frappes and delicious smoothies. We are a family-oriented establishment with huge selection for kids and any non-coffee drinkers as well. We also have fresh, delicious pastries, homemade breakfast croissants, pretty much anything your heart desires. Come see us at High Point Coffee in West Jordan, on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood. We look forward to meeting you.
This is Gregory, owner of Lift Up Concrete, proudly serving the Wasatch Front for the last 12 years, lifting sunken flatwork for both residential and commercial applications. Only fully trained professionals lifting concrete at your residence with the same quality of material and method used at every commercial job we ever do. Don't replace it, lift it. liftupconcrete.net, 801-792-4535. Contact us at liftupconcrete.net, or if you're looking for a complimentary quote, 801-792-4535. Again, 801-792-4535. Again, this is Gregory, Lift Up Concrete Lifting.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Other Side of Addiction. And we just want to take time right now to thank our sponsor, High Point Coffee in West Jordan, right off 7800 South in Redwood. Tell you what, you want a good tasting cup of coffee, go there. And my favorite is the chai. I love their chai. So thank you, High Point Coffee.
That's a TL, by the way.
I know. It is a tea. It is a tea. Well, the only reason why I said chai is because I ordered once chai tea. Yeah, Brad's up there putting over their logo. Love the logo. But I went up to order one time, and somebody that I know was behind me, and I said, yeah, I'd like a chai tea. And then he tapped me on the shoulder, and he goes, do you realize chai is tea? And I'm like, oh, so I don't need to use both words? Just here comes the snort. Yeah, so it's just the chai. But
that's why I brought
anyway,
that up.
Thank you, High Point. We are so grateful for your sponsorship, and I just also want to take the time to mention Resilience Talk Network. Thank you so much, Brad, for allowing us to be here and be a part of this. I don't think we could do this without them, right?
Absolutely not. No.
Great.
We all need each other in this world, and that's
Yes,
what
we
we're
do.
learning, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you think you can do it all alone, and that's never the case.
No, you can't. You've got to ask for help. So, but anyway, hey, thank you guys for returning. And before we went to break, we mentioned that Lorie was going to share her story, and so guess who's up to bat?
Well, okay. My name's Lorie Warburton. I'm your Lady in Red first responder always. That's my business card and logo. I became that over years and years of wondering what my purpose in life was exactly. I mean, I thought at one point I was going to be a famous singer. And the reason I felt that way is because I did have talent scouts throughout my life, and I built upon these different things, and I would sing wherever I went. That's the only way I really had a voice, and I say that in my life because I feel like my voice was silenced at a young age. And that was about 5 years old when I was told that no one would believe me, and that my mom would leave, and that all these terrible things would happen if I ever told what was really going on behind the scenes. So at that point in time, as a young child, I realized later I was given these phenomenal blessings from God. My strengths, I made up a polar bear to kind of get me through these rough times. I ended up having acute asthma that was brought on by these episodes. But because I couldn't tell what was happening, people, when I'd be taken to the hospital, this or that, with these asthma attacks, they would think I was allergic to something. Well, I was, but because I was afraid to say anything, it wasn't properly diagnosed. So throughout my life and history, I actually had asthma into my 30s, well into my 30s, until I started getting rid of the stress. So it was stress-induced asthma. And that's where the polar bear came in. If my mom would ask me, why can't you breathe? And I can't breathe and I can't say anything. But when I would calm down, I would say this polar bear was coming in to our house. He was trying to get in with a key. And each time she would ask, I would escalate the story a little bit more. And so I was given a creative imagination to get me through some really tough times. I was also given a voice related to my singing, and I mean, that progressed. I had a lot of success with that. I had 21 years in dentistry, 15 years in the car industry. I'd done all these different things, and in the meantime, I was singing, and that was really my true love. Throughout my life, I made choices, and most of them included abusive people. And I could never figure out, why am I always choosing these things? Is this the way life is always supposed to be? By dusting myself off and picking myself up each time without really addressing the original problem is where I came into finding alcohol for the very first time at a young age of 14.
So, can I interrupt you just for a second
Absolutely.
on your story? So at the start of this, you said that you found your voice and you used singing and things to cope with what was going on. Now, again, this is up to you, but to share with the audience, if you want to, what was it? Because you mentioned that you was told that your mom would leave you and different things. I mean, why was that being said to you? So they understand what was happening. Again, it's up to you if you want to share that or not,
Yeah.
of course.
So it's really a touchy subject
Okay.
because I have a family member who's not very happy with me sharing these
Okay,
emotions
fair
or
enough.
feelings.
Right.
However, at a young age, I was being sexually abused. Okay. And then I kind of like to just go from there.
Okay.
Because, some things, like I say, aren't appropriate for somebody I've mended a relationship with
Absolutely,
or
yeah.
trying to.
Okay.
So they ask me, please, these types of things.
Right,
So
right.
I try to respect where I've been, and all of this.
Which you should. Okay, I'll let you carry on. I
Yeah, and
apologize.
so that's where that
Okay.
came from. But I've always had this ability to just kind of pick myself up and move on with life. But with doing so, being that strong personality and woman that I've been throughout my life, I think I've said this before, I've never created a victim. I've always been a victor and been able to move along and create and do these things. I've never asked for financial help from anybody, anything like that. I've just moved on. When I was 14, I had my first drink. I realized that calmed my inner self for the first time. I used to be so worried in life that I never knew where the next punch, hit, choke, smothered with pillows.
Wow.
I mean, I could tell you stories that would make your toes curl, but I do not want to do that because I've moved on from that. And I'm so proud of myself, to where and knock on heaven door, okay? But I never had to go on welfare. I never had to, these things, just like I said, I was just very, I wanted to just create a strong woman, you know what I mean, and be there for my kids. I had 2 young boys, and unfortunately, some of their growing up wasn't probably their best years. Although as a young mom, when I got married, I was 17 years old. I didn't have to get married. I ran away to get married. There's a lot more to my story. But like I said, some of my things are very touchy, and I've mended some of these fences in relationships. So those things, I think, are meant for another person's story to tell.
Yeah, okay,
and
yeah.
maybe at certain points I'll touch base on what really lies beneath. I watched a show about that the other night, What Lies Beneath. I don't know if you've seen that one
I
on
haven't.
Netflix,
No.
but I'm telling you what happened from that. I was like, And so there are other things that lie beneath. But I guess you could get the gist of my story, okay, from what I'm going to tell you. My relationship with alcohol, which I think is the most important thing to relate here. I always had that in my life. It led to nothing good. It was always very abusive. It was, I only drank alcohol so I wouldn't feel the pain anymore. I wasn't drinking alcohol to have fun. Okay,
Right.
and so people utilize it for different things. I think at first they think, oh, this is going to be fun or whatever. But I only used it so it would disguise a feeling within me, like maybe I was afraid, or, I knew these things were going to happen and I was going to get punched or hit or something like that. And so I would drink to ease the pains of all of this. Or I didn't want my family to know what I was actually going through, so I just wouldn't say anything. But
Like a meditation in a bottle.
yeah, kind of like.
Yeah.
But I never really, I kind of just used it occasionally. And then sometimes I would binge drink, a little bit and go out and do these types of things. And I think that's normal for an alcoholic or anybody who's going through things or just experimenting with it. But I noticed that I went through a loss in my life. It's when I got a phone call one day telling me that my mom had a stage 4 brain tumor. And she only had 3 months to live. And when I got that phone call, I dropped the phone at work. I mean, I ran, I went to her rescue, and I actually moved in with her for a while. She lived 8 months. My stepdad was there also, and we were the sole caretakers throughout that time. But I thought I was prepared for her death. You know, when you have a loss of a loved one, she was my very best friend. And she made the world brighter and better for so many people. She was just so beautiful, and I mean,
That's where you got it from.
well, thank you. I mean, she was 71 when she passed away, but she looked 50 years old and so vibrant that to see somebody like that, I mean, laying in bed with her at night while she's losing her hair through all the treatments and everything like that. And when she actually passed away, well, she wanted me to sing at her funeral. She already had that planned before. I mean, we were on a drive. I don't know if she knew she was sick before. She did know she was sick about a year before, but I remember us driving up to go boating, and we heard the song of Martina McBride, In My Daughter's Eyes. And she said, when I pass away, I want you to sing this at my funeral. And I'm like, don't talk to me about that right now. And, you know, and this was years before that. But she did admit that because she was about 8 years younger than my stepdad, 8 to 9 years younger, she was worried that if she told him what she was feeling, that he might feel like, oh no, I'm going to have to take care of this older woman or something that I chose to marry. And so she was afraid to tell him. And for about a year, she went through these feelings of, she thought she had Alzheimer's,
Oh, wow.
you know, and she couldn't find her way home on certain days, things like this. Well, anyway, I finally got that call, like I said, and then when she passed away, she wanted me to put her makeup on her as a corpse and do her hair and all this, and I actually did that. I don't know where I got that strength to get through that, sing
Yeah,
at her
I couldn't
funeral,
imagine.
do all these things, but I did, and I thought I was fine. And then when when that was actually over, the excitement of all of that, and I went through that, and then I was home just by myself. Our whole family fell apart because she was the one thing that kept us
She
all.
was the
She
glue?
was the glue. And then the spokes went flying, and everyone else had a partner in life, and I was alone. And so that's when I started losing my identity, and my wheels kind of came off, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was kidding myself. I mean, I started hating the holidays, which I loved very much. She made those so bright and wonderful. I started shutting my kids out, my friends, everything. I would close the door. I mean, it would be 4th of July or whatever. I'd lock the door and close it, and I'd just be in there drinking by myself. That's when I started falling apart with alcohol. So, I just,
Did you really know at the time? I mean, you said that you were locking yourself, but did you really know that was the path that you were starting to go down? Did you feel it, or?
I did. I
Okay.
started really noticing it. I mean, my kids were calling, and I don't want to answer. When she passed away, it was in, it was in June. She died on June 5th. So June, then it'd be July, August, September's her birthday, September 4th. And then all the holidays following after that. And
Yeah.
it was just a pattern.
Okay.
And I was into that pattern for probably about 6 years.
Wow.
So I was hiding behind this mask, you know, of I lost my mom, but yet nobody really knew that at first, because I mean, I was still going very, very functional, doing all of these things. But when I got in my house, run in, close the door, and I'm by myself, right? And it just started getting worse and worse from that point. So what I guess the reason for my bringing this up, and I'm fast forwarding through my life, of course, because I don't want to just, you know, hang on things, but I'm trying to touch on things that are really important on how somebody loses themselves. Don't know their purpose, this or that. But I really feel like the loss of a loved one is huge. The loss of a job, not knowing why you're here. You're afraid, or you're going through something, you don't know quite how to get through it or who to reach out to. I think those are times we lose ourselves in life. And so anyway, I was single at this time, and I'd been single probably for, I don't know, 6 years. And then I thought, well, maybe I need to get a guy in my life or whatever. And so I met a man in the liquor store of all places. I mean, I'm just sharing my story
Is
here.
that better than a bar? I don't know.
I was like, I need to go. In fact, I fought this one day out my driveway. I had this angel on one shoulder and the good angel on one,
devil.
the other on the other, going, don't go to the liquor store, don't do. And then I met this man, and he portrayed himself to be this wonderful person, somebody that I would never be interested in. And I don't mean to be rude when I say these things, okay? But honestly, it wasn't my type of a person I would be attracted to. But there was something he said or something that caught my attention. I thought, oh, this guy's like different than the rest of the guys I've ever met in my life, and yeah, I'm going to give this person a chance and this or that. But anyway, let's just go from there. So once we got together, he even had my family fooled by what a nice person he was. But when I actually spent some time with him, and I felt like he was a good person, and I ended up moving in with this guy, and behind closed doors the abuse started.
Oh, no.
That he was actually diagnosed a narcissist. His father was a narcissist as well, but I didn't know these things. And so here I thought, this guy, they paint themselves to be the most glorious, wonderful person. He had me quit my job. He started isolating me from my family, taking away my friends. He didn't want me working around men. I was caught in that same scenario I was in before, by being abused as a young girl and not taking the time to understand and just moving on with my life. It was affecting every choice I made in life, and so I was picking these abusive people, but then I'd spend like 5-6 years alone. Oh, I think I'm okay. And then there I was again, blinded by this personality or somebody I thought was going to be different, because he did not even meet the ratio of the people I would choose.
Yeah.
But once I got behind the closed doors and the abuse started and all these things, I got so embarrassed, because my kids actually thought, oh, she's with a good person now. And then here I am, like right back in the same place. And I thought, really, is this all life has to offer me after all of this time? And so suddenly I just said, you know what, he had me quit my job. I'm here by myself every day. Now he's accusing me of all, like they do. They kind of do this.
The guilt trip.
Well, yeah, and they blame things on you that they're doing themselves. And so they create this window of things where you think you're going crazy or something. You're like, what's going on here? And so I just gave up at that point in my life, and I said, he was an alcoholic as well. I'm just gonna throw that in there. And I just made a decision one day that I didn't want to live anymore. And that's kind of where you were at one point, but I took it to the level. So I stopped eating. I didn't eat. All I did was drink alcohol.
Oh, my goodness.
Straight. I did that for several months until my organs all swelled up. I had the ambulance called on me several times. I had the doctor say, if you drink again, you're going to die. And I'm not just telling you that to scare you. This is what is
This is
going to
real.
happen. This is real. This is real. And I thought, oh, good. Because that's
Yeah.
just what I want, you
I'm
know.
accomplishing what I wanted to do.
So this vibrant person who is me, right, who, if anybody knew me at all, would never know this person. So I didn't get out of bed. I didn't put my makeup on. I would lay around in the dark. I mean, I wasn't allowed to go to the grocery store by myself. I wasn't allowed to do anything without this person, you know, and I just thought, okay, I can't do this, you know, and things got really abusive. I don't want to mention what those were. Like I said, I don't like to do that because
Right.
looking back for me is only to see how far I've come. But these things happened to me, and they were horrifying behind the closed doors. And so, but anyway, one day after I got the news, oh, if you drink again, you're going to die. Oh, good. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I remember just laying there, and I never looked at myself in the mirror anymore, which is odd for me. I'm just saying, because I mean, my mom raised me, okay, and
Right.
so it was like, you don't go out of the house without makeup, you don't get all dolled up and get ready and this and that. It's just not me at all. But this particular day where I felt like I was dying, you know, and I went into the bathroom and I caught a glimpse of myself. And what I saw, and then I looked and I saw this very dark image. There was no light in my eyes.
Wow.
There was no anything. It was just as if I was it was scary. And I saw myself and I was like, wow, it's happening. And okay, so I went back in the bedroom and I had my bottle of vodka sitting by the bed, you know, and I decided to pour a big old glass and just take my last drink because I think that's where I'm going and heading. And that's what I did. So I drank that down and I just closed my eyes. I was sitting up at the time and I just was like, and then this might sound really like, oh, wow, that was a strong glass of vodka you had, but this happened to me. A light came out of the ceiling. Now, when my mom passed away, there was an orb of light, and it was several months after, but I was staying at her house, and things came to me in lights, right? But this was a more powerful thing that had ever happened to me before. So I'm just sitting there, and a very bright light came down out of the ceiling, and all of a sudden I started hearing my life in voices. Like my brother, I don't want you to die like Aunt Mary did. She was an alcoholic. I started hearing my grandkids, my boys, Mom, I love you so much, you know, and all these things. And I hadn't cried, and I don't know, I'm a crier, and I love people so much but I hadn't cried in so long. But all I felt was like from the inside out, like these tears just flowing down my face while this light's down upon me, as if it was a familiar feeling, like I had felt that somewhere before. And I can't explain what I was going through. But then as I saw and heard these things, then the light went away, and there I was left with just these, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, people do love me. I do have a purpose. People need me here. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I grabbed the phone, and that's when I called for help. And I called my son, who's a highway patrolman. And I said, you know, son, I need some help. Sorry.
No, I was starting to get a little upset because you haven't cried as much as I have today. So cry some more, please.
No, but he
No.
said, Mom, I kept on wondering if I would get a call, you know, after 9 o'clock or something, if that was going to be the call telling me you were dead.
Wow.
You know, and he said, I'm so thankful for this phone call. It was the best phone call I've ever made. I truly believe that I had a spiritual awakening at that moment. And I believe that, my higher power, God, who had never left me, needed me to know, hey, you have many more things to do here. Like, what do you think you're doing, And I was so grateful for that call. Him, the God Almighty, reaching out to me. Who am I amongst all these millions and thousands of people in the world? I wanted to share something that's very powerful that helped me stay sober for 6 years throughout my life. And it's something that my son wrote to me, and I feel like this will be helpful to listeners out there. At one time, when I checked myself into treatment after that, I moved in with my kids for about 6 months, and that was the highway patrol son and his wife, and I'm very grateful to them for that time. But I had asked him when I was in treatment, can you please tell me, what was it like having me, through that time when I was pushing you guys away, and or the times I'd show up at family functions or that drinking because I didn't know how to handle it. So I said, do you think you could write to me and tell me that? So I'm going to share his thoughts. He says, my thoughts. As you know, this is not the easiest thing for me to do, as I do not share my feelings that well, but here it goes. If I were to describe your drinking behavior in one statement, it would be out of control. However, it is much more than that. When you are truly sober, you are the most wonderful and enjoyable person to be around. You really care about everyone. It's so fun to have you around, and we are sad when you're not with us. You always tell me that I am the most important person in your life, your rock. When you choose to drink, I feel like a mere second place, which actually feels like being trampled on by a herd of elephants each and every time. When you are not sober, you are deceitful, you're selfish, and you are annoying. When you are not sober, you lie, you do not treat others as your best friend, and you do not take responsibility for your own actions. To justify your actions by finding fault in everyone around you. You treat others as if they owe you something. You may not realize this, Mom, but when you try to show your support for your family by showing up to family parties or other events when you are intoxicated, it is more hurtful to us than if you were just not there at all. When you are sober, you are so strong, such a confident woman. You're beautiful. When you are not, you are depressed and insecure. You seem to have no purpose in life, and sometimes you can't even get out of bed to face the day. You allow people to take advantage of you, and sometimes, more often than not, even physically harm you. See, here I am with tears rolling down my face because I have to think about this negative and hurtful BS. Anyway, I think you get the idea of how this makes not only me feel, but all of the people that truly love and care for you. There are so many emotions I have had to go throughout my entire life regarding your drinking and using, and it really is hard for me to put it all into words. Just know that I do love you, and I am very proud of you for taking the steps to recovery. So who knows? Maybe someday, very soon, I will once again have my mom back. Love, your son, Jack.
Wow, that is deep. That is really deep. And
I know that was maybe a long segment there, but
no, I'm glad you shared that.
For so long, I mean, people don't understand, when you're, you don't see yourself when you're not sober, when you're going through those things, or when you're living that alcoholic or what have you, and people put a label on you or say these different things. But to have him, be able to write those words and feelings down. You don't know how many times that saved my life,
I can
while I
imagine.
was going through hard things. After that, just trying to be by myself, to better myself, to understand myself and what I went through. What a lot of people don't understand is you have to go back to where the problem first started. Until you're willing to take a look at that, which most people aren't, till you're willing to become accountable for your actions throughout your life and understand, hey, it's you as well. You're making these choices. Why are you doing that? It was very painful for me to go all the way back and remember things I didn't want to think about. But by doing so, and by having that spiritual awakening and realizing there was a power greater than myself, my life opened up and I could start remembering all the way back. It's pretty phenomenal when I think about, I was in my later 20s, early 30s, and I'm having these flashbacks come to me of my dad, coming after me because I'd pushed it in the back of my mind. Believe me, one day the drawers start opening and you're going, what the heck?
Yeah.
But most people don't know how to deal with that. So, even though these things are hard to talk about, I've become willing to do that to help other people, because I know there's so many other women, men, that have gone through these things, and yeah, it's hard to go back and try to look, but once you do, and you're willing to stand up and do that, your life will change for the better.
One thing that I really liked about your son's letter is how his letter just wasn't about the bad parts about you. He shared in there what a phenomenal woman you are, what a great person, and the love and the care that you have for others. During my wife's battle, throughout pretty much all her life, and she shared this with me, that she has felt like she's worthless, that she knows she's a caring person, but at the same time she's contradicting that, saying, yeah, I'm a terrible person, and then she felt guilty for all the stuff that she's put me through and other family members and her kids and things. That was big for your son to hopefully, I believe he put that in there to open your eyes, to let you realize what a phenomenal human being you are, because that is one thing that I've done my best to try to share with my wife too, even when she was in her darkest moments. Yeah, I threw a lot of daggers and a lot of rocks and threw some bad punches, but I would also come in and say, look, you are not worthless. You have so much to give. And anybody that's out there listening thinking that they don't, you do. I see who you are. And when you and I first met, I would have never known that you went through the stuff that you went through. So for those that are listening out there, damn it, there's hope. Do not give up, because your life can change snap of a finger that quick.
Yeah, in the blink of an eye. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to have my family. And even though we go through trials and tribulations and all of this, all of us are growing together. Also realizing that relationships that you get into need to be healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the only healthy relationship I ever had was, with my boys, of course, and then my stepfather. He's been a huge contribution to my life. I love him so much. And now knowing what healthy relationships are and allowing me to meet somebody phenomenal in my life that I have right now, and the difference it makes, is huge. So choosing to be around positive people, uplifting people and noticing what healthy is versus not healthy
Yeah.
is really something I had to learn, and I'm glad I have it now, and I don't care. I want the rest of my life to be the best of my life. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to take those knockdowns or punches and little fall downs that we all have, but I've always tried to be there for others and cheer them up and be, I guess, one other thing is I've always had an unconditional love for people. That's never stopped. I mean, I'm so thankful to have a forgiving heart and to love others, even though my heart's been broken probably 1,000,000,000,000 times over, I still have the love there, and that will never go away, So,
You still have to put your trust in people. I mean, you really do, because I think everybody in this room, and we talked about it before we started the show, that we've all been taken advantage of. We've all been hurt. We've all been stepped on. And I know people that are in my life that they think every person that comes up to them, if they don't know them, they're out to screw them. And I can't imagine living that way, because I would rather live with a soft heart like yours, like Brad's, to be able to allow people to come in. And yeah, you may lose that hand, but you know what? As long as you don't lose who you are inside, all it is just another lesson. And life throws that at us all the time. We're constantly going through lessons and turmoils. And that's what helps us grow. That's what's
Absolutely.
helped all of us get to where we are at today. Because do you think you would be the person you are today without the trials that you've gone through?
I mean, I can't believe when I look over my life how grateful I am for every aspect. I mean, it might have been hard to go through or what have you looking back, but I'm glad I did, because now I have the ability to help so many other people and to really understand my niche in life and my abilities and my purpose, and I want to help other people find theirs. That's what I'm all about, and really what I've always been about, but I just didn't know why until I had to have that journey. Everybody reaches that bottom or like whatever wakes them up. I mean, I had awakening that I'll never forget. So, absolutely.
Well, Lorie, thank you for sharing that story. That was awesome. And that letter that your son wrote, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I hope that touched our audience's heart like it touched mine, because that was something else.
Yeah, that, like I said, so it saves my life over and over, so.
It's a good thing. That's what's cool about technology nowadays, right? We just pull out the phone before, because I've had things written to me, but back in the days when I used to carry a wallet and you'd open it up and the tape would be holding it together, and it'd finally get to a point where it would just kind of crumble. But now everything's just on our phone, so we can constantly look at it. I've shared a story before with somebody that was saying that they have a hard time getting out of a day that's been bad for them. And I went to a class, oh my goodness, probably 7 years ago, and the teacher taught us how quick it is to change your attitude and change how you think. So she had everybody stand up and draw an imaginary circle in front of them. And she goes, okay, I want all of you to think of something that just ticks you off, something that makes you sad or angry or whatever. And then when I say 3, count to 3, step inside that circle. And I just want you to think about it. And then when I say everybody open their eyes and look around the room. So we did exactly what she said. We closed our eyes. We started thinking something. We stepped in the circles. I think it was like 60 seconds went by, and she goes, okay, everybody open your eyes and look around the room. And I remember looking around the room and seeing people with clenched fists, people that just gritting their teeth, angry looks on their face. I saw some people crying. And she goes, okay, now step out of the circle. She goes, now this time I want you to close your eyes, and at the count of 3, step inside the circle, but think of something that just makes you happy. Just something, whether it's a past event or it's just happy thoughts. And so we went through that same routine. And then when she said, open your eyes, look around the room, you saw people. Everybody was smiling. I mean, huge, huge smiles. And she goes, the reason why we did this exercise is because that's how quick you can change with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was at the FedEx or the UPS where my wife and we have our mailbox. And I remember during the holiday seasons, I went in there to go get my mail. And this guy walked in and he was having issues with a package that was supposed to be delivered to him. And the girl was doing everything she could to try to help this guy out. And she finally said, sir, I'm sorry. I just don't know, but this is what the computer's saying. I don't know what else to tell you. I've done everything I can on my end. And the guy was getting all upset and ticked off. And she was so great. She's like, sir, I'm sorry I couldn't help you, but I wish you a wonderful day. I hope you're having a good day. And he goes, well, how the hell is my day going to be great after this? And he storms out the door. And as soon as he stormed out the door, that little routine that we went through in that class popped in my head. And I went, so he's willing to screw his whole day over to be worthless over something so tiny when really it is quick. Now,
Trivial.
I'm not saying I'm perfect because there's times things eat me up too, and it'll stay with me for a long period of time. But yeah, people got to know that life isn't as bad as what we make it seem out to be. And yeah, we've gone through some bad stuff. You have gone through a ton of bad things. Some of the stories I've heard at AA meetings, I'm just in shock. Going, I couldn't imagine going through something like that. And now look at you.
Yeah.
So
there's what I like
hope.
to call it is miracles. We're all miracles in progress.
I love that.
And life is what you make it, and thank goodness for positivity. I know I talk about this all of the time, but if you can have that positive mindset, the only time I didn't is when I gave up. When I finally just said, it really is this all life has to offer? And I never want to be that again. I never want to feel that way ever again. So defeated that I feel like, there's just no way up or out. But I know that a lot of people feel that way. That's why this is reaching people out of the darkness into the light. And I feel like that's so important. But a lot of time I can look back and laugh at a few things too. I try to, be, I don't know, just look at myself with an open mind and heart and with humility. And when you think that you're out there being the greatest of all, I think sometimes that's when you lose it, or when you feel like, like you don't have to humble yourself to grow in life or to share like these experiences that we're talking about right now. I know there's a lot of people that don't ever want to say anything, they think that it will diminish their, what do I want to call that?
Their demeanor or their I don't know.
Well, their persona, or
yeah.
like their professional, if you work in
They're gonna be looked at
professional
differently.
relationships with people. I've had a few people throughout time when I've been willing to share my story say, oh, don't say that. You're going to default yourself and it's going to hurt you throughout life in your professional career and all this. And I'm thinking, really? Because I've done nothing but grow by doing that. And I've created more professional relationships because of it. So, I don't want anybody to feel that they're out there and you can't come forth, or be who you are, or start changing like one little bit at a time, and learn how to do that. We're all imperfect. We really are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back to look when we were learning how to walk. Of course, we don't ever remember. But if a baby gave up after trying to stand up and walk and fell down twice, you think the baby just says, okay, well, this ain't for me. I'll just crawl the rest of my life. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Why is it that we beat ourselves up so bad as we get into adulthood? I mean, life isn't always going to work out. It's not. I think it was in a Rocky movie where it's not always going to be rainbows and, roses and I can't remember which Rocky
Unicorns
movie it
and
was.
lollipops.
Unicorns and lollipops. But, like you said, shuffle your feet. As long as you're shuffling your feet forward, eventually it'll start into a little step, and then they get larger and larger. But
I just want to say, if you're noticing someone who's having a bad day, reach out to them. Maybe just say, give them a smile. Ask them if they're okay. Is there anything that you can do for them? So many times, I think we pass those opportunities up. I have a neighbor downstairs. I just want to share this real quick here. For some reason, she keeps coming outside the same time as me. I mean, I know that she's not, oh, here she comes, because she can't see me, but for some reason we end up on the front lawn every day. She's got this big dog. She's this cute little person, and I said, I think there's a reason why we keep meeting here. And she goes, and at first she was real shy and wouldn't talk to me, so I'd just say hi and pet her dog a little bit, and as the days went on, this kept happening. I mean, it didn't matter what time of day it was or whatever. And then finally, it was yesterday. I went home and I was feeding my cats and then I came out, and then here she comes, and there we are again. And so I noticed her mom coming, what I looked like to be her mom coming out of her apartment one day. And I said, was that your mom the other day? She said, yeah. And I said, tell me a little bit about yourself. I said, I think there's some reason we're meeting here all the time at the same time. She goes, I kind of think so too. And so she shared her little story. She said, I just moved in. I have no furniture. So if you want to come visit, I'll probably have to come visit you, because I don't have any furniture. I'm Hispanic. Her little mom was Hispanic. And we didn't get into the whole story, but here I have a garage where I have furniture I'm not using. And I'm thinking, what, I feel like maybe a few pieces I could give to her. There's more to this story that she's not sharing with me.
Yeah.
And I know she's going to open up more. So just keep your eyes open out there, because, I noticed that this was happening, and I felt kind of a special feeling or something. And so I plan to get to know her a little bit better and see how I can help her and reach out and just see, because you never know what's happening out there in life.
You don't know what people are going through. Sometimes people could be ornery or having a bad day or lost a loved one or something. You never know. And you and I talked about Project Smile. I remember I was in a Costco a couple years ago when I was working for the West Jordan Chamber, and I went in there to talk to one of their managers about something, and there was this young girl behind the counter, and when I walked up, she's like, can I help you? And she had this smile, and I said, yeah, I'm looking for so-and-so. And I remember saying, I'm like, you should do that more often. And she's like, do what? And I'm like, smile, because you have a beautiful smile. Oh my gosh, the glow that girl got all of a sudden. And, just a couple kind words can make somebody's day.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Lorie, thank you. Again, it's a pleasure.
Thanks, Al.
Always a pleasure to be with you. How we doing on time? Are we good on time? Okay. So, hope the audience today enjoyed our stories, got to know a little bit more about Lorie and I. I mean, we got into some personal things and shed some tears, and Lorie shared a phenomenal letter that her son wrote her that she still reads to this day, which I think is great. So, tune in next week. Next week we have a guest coming in by the name of Diane. She's going to share a little bit about her story and her journey about being on the other side, where she's going to share where her and her husband, they've known each other since they were 14 years old. and she's going to share how at the age of 17, when things kind of started going south. But it's going to be an interesting story, I believe.
Well, I kind of had one other little tidbit I wanted to give. So this podcast called The Other Side of Addiction, and this thing came to mind where we're all trying to get to the other side. It doesn't have to be addiction with alcohol, whatever, and I mentioned that, but we're all trying to get over this hump. We're all trying to reach this other side. So it's not just the person dealing with someone who's having an addiction. It's that person who's gotten over these humps and bumps, and they're on the other side, willing to reach out and, bring others over the hump too, to get them to the other side where they need to be, and find their purpose and their superpowers and all of that make them who they are. So
and I'm glad you brought that up, because again, that's what this show's all about. I mean, the other side, no matter what it may
Absolutely.
be, because we are all trying to get on the other side. And hopefully with the thin veil, I'm hoping I'm on that other side in the good part as well.
Yeah.
So, please tune in next week. Again, Lorie, thank you so much. Brad,
Thanks, Al.
thank you for your time. Greatly appreciate it.
Brad.
Again, just another shout out to High Point Coffee and Resilience Talk Network. And I have decided I'm going to leave a little saying at the end of every show. How's that?
Awesome.
So, guys, love can't always save us, but it can be the reason why we fight. So keep on fighting.